FORA.tv. The world is thinking.
Tan Le, a remarkable entrepreneur, has started a company. Can we press? Yeah, there we go. That is finally building a brain controller for the rest of the world. We think it almost works. And with luck, we've asked somebody appropriate to help her demonstrate that. So Tan, stage is yours.
Thanks, Mike. And thank you for including me in this session, because magic, I think, and mind control is probably mankind's most grandest and oldest fantasies. I can remember back just watching Eric performance earlier. I can remember when I was a little girl thinking, and watching a magic performance, thinking, now I could do that myself. If only I could think something and make that move. And watching the Star Wars series, the same thought crossed my mind. And it wasn't until I was 26, over dinner one night, it was quite serendipitous that I actually had the opportunity to meet one of my friends, world-renowned neuroscientist, Professor Alan Snyder, who's probably most well known for the theory behind the optical fibre, for which he won a Marconi Prize in 2001. And Alan had devoted his entire life to researching about the brain and, wow, this light is bright, and understanding how it actually affects autistic savants. And his theory was all about the idea that everybody has an inner genius, and it's our perception, it's our education that actually prevents us from being able to tap into this inner genius. Anyway, the conversation over dinner lasted several hours, and it was 3 a.m. in the morning when we started to talk about the ideas around communication and the brain. And this really started the concept behind Emotiv. So if you look at the way that we interact with machines up until this point in time, it's always involved some form of direct or conscious command, whether it's something as simple as turning on the lights with a switch, or even as complex as programming software. We've always had to give a machine a command or a series of commands in order for it to perform a specific function for us. But on the other hand, if you look at the communication between people, it's actually a lot more interesting and much more informative, because we take into account far more than what is explicitly expressed. So we observe facial expressions, we observe body language, and from that we can start to intuit feelings and emotions into our dialogue with one another. And this is an area that is completely lacking in our communication with machines. And so our vision at Emotiv, which is the company that I co-founded together with Alan, Nam, and Neil Westy, our belief is that the next generation of human-computer interaction needs to evolve beyond the limits of conscious or direct inputs. And this idea of being able to integrate both conscious and non-conscious commands into the dialogue will play a really big part. And this is what we call total communication. And really, when you look at the technology landscape and the way that it's changing, there is some really interesting trends. The nature of information is changing radically. Searching, for example, in the past, it's very simplistic with just data and text, but now you've got multimedia type applications, audio-visual type applications, interactive applications, and you need a much more efficient way of looking at content. I have, 3,000 songs in my iTunes. If I actually had to manually rank from 1 to 5 stars every single song, every time I listen to the piece, it's a very tedious process, and I really don't have the time or the energy or the inclination to do that. But if I was to have the headset on, and as I was listening to music, it was able to understand my experience and start to tally and rank my preferences, then that becomes something far more interesting. So it can be a very interesting tool and a very efficient tool for searching, for classifying information, for presenting information and content that's relevant to you, and allows machines to dynamically change in real time to reflect what you want. And this sort of individualization, personalization is becoming very important as we move towards a much more real-time, immediate sort of world. So the idea was great. We finished off dinner at around 3:30 and we went home and we couldn't sleep that night. None of us. My business partner in a previous venture, myself and Alan, who had this dialogue over dinner, the three of us really had trouble sleeping that night. And 3 months later, we connected in Melbourne, Australia, over dinner again, and said, we need to really start a business around this. And so we started Emotiv. And whilst the idea was great, here's our challenge. We've got I suppose the helmet-like structure over the top of the brain there is how far removed the headset is. It's totally non-invasive technology, and what we're looking at is really changes in electrical fluctuations, which is the result of billions of active neurons inside the brain interacting with each other, and the chemical reaction just emits this electrical impulse. And we scoured the world for literature around this. Sure, Alan had devoted his entire life to researching the brain, and he had some insights, but this was, brand new work. And we looked at the world's literature around this, and there had been some great work done in implants, or inserting metal probes inside the brain, but nothing that was non-invasive that really provided the type of resolution that we wanted to achieve to create the type of interface device that was really the essence of our dreams. So we were wondering how we might be able to do that. So looking at fMRI studies, looking at even the work of people who had been there before in terms of inserting implants into the brain, the localized source is very consistent across the population. So if you were to experience a particular emotion or think a particular thought, the same region of the brain would be activated consistently across the population. But if you look at this cortex, which is the structure that we associate with the brain, because of its inherent differences in the folding of the structure across the population, it's individualized, much like our fingerprint. And so from a signal standpoint, if you're looking at an electrical signal, even though it comes from the same source deep inside the brain, by the time it travels through the cortex, gets bounced across the various folding structure and gets projected onto the surface of the scalp to be measured by this non-invasive process, the signal actually looks random across the population. And this was our fundamental challenge. It was not an easy problem to crack. We really didn't have any ideas as to how we might approach this problem, but one thing we thought we would do is not to bring in anybody who had spent 30 years applying their knowledge to this field. We assembled a team of scientists, very, very intelligent people, scientists, engineers, who were really experts in their own fields, but very different. Digital signal processing people, AI people, neural network classifiers, molecular biologists, evolutionary biologists, to really tackle this problem. And what we came up with was a mathematical algorithm that unfolds the cortex so that we can map the signal far closer to its source. Obviously, it's not the same as inserting a metal probe into the brain or having an invasive procedure to implant something into your brain to measure the results, but it certainly gives us the kind of resolution that we want for a consumer-facing application. So there are 3 detection suites that we've created, all mirroring the human-to-human dialogue. So the first is expressive, which is all about capturing your facial expressions in real time, whether you're blinking, smiling, grimacing, flirting, winking, whatever it might be, we can capture that in real time. The second suite of detections is affective, which is about understanding your emotional experience in real time. And the last detection suite is cognitive, which is this ability to move an object just by thinking about it. And with that, I'd like to welcome Marvin to the stage to help me show this. And Marvin My team, this is a really quick photo of my team in Sydney and San Francisco. This is a real honor to have Marvin come up on stage. Marvin is a pioneer in artificial intelligence, and without your pioneering work, we certainly would not have been able to do the kind of things that we've been able to do. So it's a real trip for me, and I'm sure my team are really excited that I'm showing this with Marvin's help. So if you can just take a seat here. This is a live demonstration, and with every live demonstration, there's always a possibility that things don't go according to plan, but we will see how we go. So what I'm putting on Marvin's head is essentially a high-fidelity EEG acquisition device. It's been optimized for consumer settings. So you don't, generally with a brainwave acquisition device, you actually have to have an expert technician put it on and apply conductive gel and conductive paste. It's quite a cumbersome process.
Well, I removed a lot of hair.
He did. He's actually a very easy subject to work with. So Marvin, if I'm going to scoot this around so that we can get to you. Okay. And what's this? We're going to deny this guy. All right, so I'm going to add a new user.
I'm a Mac person. Do you really think this may not work with Windows?
That's true. I'm a Mac person too, but this will work fine. Oh, really? We have a little sensor that's fallen off. Thank you so much.
Probably one won't matter.
One will be all right, but we'd like to have all his brain on. So here we are. We have all green, which is good in that little thumbnail there. I'm going to create a new user, Marvin. Okay, so what I'm going to demonstrate here is probably in the next several months you'll see this technology being applied in applications, and it will mask a lot of the raw detections that you'll see today. So I thought this would be the good opportunity to really showcase the detections behind, unveil the detections and what actually happens underneath. So here is our software development kit, which really shows the detections in its rawest form. The first thing I'm going to do, which I've already done, is added a profile. And so now I'm going to, Marvin, what action would you like to train?
Oh, let's rotate.
Rotate.
Anti-clockwise.
Okay, anti-clockwise. Apply that, and I'm going to get rid of this push thing, which is default. So what I'm going to do to begin with, because everybody's brain, as I mentioned earlier, is very different, it's unique, what we're going to do is record a neutral state, which is essentially a baseline recording of Marvin's brain, which there's a lot of, so we're just doing that now. And he doesn't have to do anything in particular, he just has to be himself and very comfortable and relaxed while we're just taking a sample of his brainwaves as he's sitting here for 30 seconds. And this, in an application like a game context or any sort of internet browser, it could happen while the application's loading because the subject or the user doesn't really have to do anything in particular.
Well, I hate being comfortable because it's terribly boring.
All right, so now that that's recorded, we're going to record a first reading of Marvin thinking about rotating this cube anti-clockwise. And what I'd like you to do is just to maintain a constant thought of rotating that cube clockwise. And what you want to do is just not stop and start, just continue to think that thought. Okay, it's green. So I'll start the training. The first time, nothing will happen because it has no idea how you think about rotating it anti-clockwise, and it will run for 6 seconds. So you can do that now. Okay, we'll accept that. Now you can try to think about rotating, but if it doesn't work, we can give it another training because it's only had 6 seconds to observe your brainwaves. Okay, do you want to give it one more shot?
Sure.
Okay. Stage fright also has a little bit to play, but 6-second training is not really quite adequate. So one more. So here we go. So you're starting to respond to him. Still on, yep.
Use the force, Marvin!
Good job. Do you want to do one more training so that it's a little bit more responsive to you?
Sure. It stopped listening.
Okay. That's great. All right.
Can you try the opposite direction?
I'm trying the opposite.
He's only trained it for this direction. He'll have to show it what it looks like for the opposite direction.
Can you train it for that?
I'm sorry?
Can you train it for that?
We certainly can. But what I'd like to do is show you something else, which is an entirely new category of detections that we just added this year. And this action, thank you, Marvin. It's awesome. This action is disappear. And the interesting thing about this action is that it's just an idea. There's no metaphors for it in the physical world. You know, with rotating an object, you have some reference point, but with disappear, it's just an idea, and we wanted to see if we could create an idea in someone's mind and then be able to use that as a command to trigger this. So this is the first detection of its kind, disappear, so we're going to give this a go.
Okay. I have a plan.
Okay. Do you want to give it a try?
Do you have both on now?
I have the disappear on now.
Okay.
That was one attempt at brain syncing. That's fantastic. Thank you so much for that.
Can you put both on and see if I can?
I can put both on, yes. Okay.
Okay. I'll stop that and go.
Wow. So that's with several minutes of training in a very intense sort of, environment. If you had some time to play with the technology in the comfort of your home, in an application like a game, which is our very first target market and audience, hopefully you'll have a far more compelling experience with, 12 hours of play. So with that, I'm going to switch to a... Thank you. Thanks, Marvin. Thank you.
The future is going to be fun. If it's not, why bother going?
The intelligent future will have many new ways to play.
Smarter technology will blur the line between what is real and what is not. New immersive games require new ways to play them. Future gamers won't need a joystick or a paddle. They'll interact with their games directly from their brains, using devices like the Epic headset from Emotiv.
Our whole interaction with the virtual world is going to be far more natural. We'll be able to use our brain and our facial expressions and our emotional experiences to really experience content in an entirely new way. And what we've created is a brain-computer interface that really transforms the way that humans interact with machines.
The Emotiv Epic wireless headset has 16 independent sensors that pick up electrical brain signals on the surface of the scalp.
We identify a signature for a particular thought or a particular emotion, and then in real time, we classify those brain patterns.
So when you think it, it happens on the screen.
You think push, the object propels forward.
So now my master's showing me how to pull using that tree. Then he'll ask me to focus all my thoughts on pulling that tree towards me.
There are 13 individual detections: push, pull, lift, drop, left, right, and then rotation in 6 different axes in a 3D environment.
You can even visualize an object disappearing, and it will. But the headset is more than just a brain-powered joystick. It allows the game to detect whether or not you're actually having fun.
It observes your experiences: excitement versus calmness, emotion, tension, frustration, engagement.
There are these mischievous spirit wisps that instead of pressing a button, I can scare away just by looking fierce. So, and you can notice by the sky color that I enjoy that part.
So when it comes to future game playing, keep an open mind.
We're really only at the tip of the iceberg in terms of what's possible.
So will all this innovation in virtual reality gaming spell the end of a good old-fashioned night out at the movies?
So I'll just leave you with, this is what you saw on Marvin was a beta version of the headset. This here is from Inc. magazine, the December issue, which is out now, of the consumer headset, which will be out in several months. Thank you very much.